tonight's video is on area and perimeter, and what I'd like you to do first is pause this video and go to the area and perimeter extra video, and that's just kind of like a little tutorial on area and perimeter, which I'm sure you know, but I'd like you just to watch part of it. You don't have to watch all of it. You can skip around. There's buttons at the bottom of the video that allow you to go to the next scene. So I'd just like you to take a couple minutes and preview that video and then come back for the lesson. So we're going to work with area and perimeter, and the difference might be from what you've done in the past is that in the past you may not have used formulas. Okay, so we need to show our formulas and then plug in our numbers and get our answer. So let's see how that's going to work. The first thing is we'll define perimeter as the distance around an object or shape, and to find it we just add the measures of all the sides. The little giraffe says perimeter is just a walk in the park. Actually, it's a walk around the park. You got to go all the way around whatever it is you're measuring. So let's take a look at a couple different methods. The first method is to just add up all the sides. And for that case, what you're going to do is use the perimeter equals sum of all sides formula. Okay? Pretty straightforward. It can be used in anything, even an irregular shape. On this page, we only have regular shapes, but we might be doing some irregular shapes. So you can sum all the sides, and notice here that I even have sides listed that are not shown. In other words, the most common mistake made in perimeter problems is students say the perimeter is 13 plus 25. Wrong. The perimeter is 13 plus 25 plus 13 plus 25. And that would be 76. Don't forget your units, of course, when you're giving your final answer. The second method is to use a formula, add two sides and multiply that by 2. So that's kind of like taking those two sides that you see and then saying, well, I know there's two of them. Okay, and then again you would plug in and then you would get your final answer, as you can see in units. So look at the square and think about the two different methods that you would use for that and try those. You can pause the video here. The first method is perimeter is sum of all sides, so I'm going to add 2.5 4 times to get 10. The second method is to multiply that one side. Since it's a square, we're assuming it's a square. Okay, so let's assume that here they had in square, and in this one they had in, because we didn't know that either, rectangle. All right, so now we know, and this we'll put in here right now is a hexagon, actually a regular hexagon, and that should help our work. We don't have to assume anything then. Okay. Alrighty, so we can multiply one side by 4, and that's going to give us the same answer. So number 3 now you should be able to do on your own. That would be the sum of all sides, or 41 6 times. Very tedious, would not want to do that. I would just take one side and multiply it by 6. Good? All right, so whenever the diagram is confusing, remember just to pretend you're walking all the way around the figure. So find the perimeter in each problem below. Well, the first one is a triangle. It is not an equilateral or isosceles triangle. It happens to be scalene. So I'm going to use sum of all sides. Now be very careful in pictures, okay? I'm starting at one corner and I'm walking around it. All right, so you can try this on your own and hopefully you won't get tricked. Okay, the 6.8 is irrelevant information in that picture. So you can go ahead and try some of these, pausing as necessary to come back and reveal the answers. For the trapezoid, I would, even though it's isosceles, I would also use sum of all sides for my formula. And that would give me 10 plus 12 plus 15 plus, don't forget that second 12 over here that's not marked. Okay, the 8 is completely irrelevant. We're also going to have some irregular shapes. Now we know this length is 48, this is 9, this is 8. How can I get the perimeter of this figure? I'd like you to pause here and maybe think about that. Okay? Well, if you think about it, if you've already paused, if we move this guy out of the way, these lengths are actually the same as those lengths. So I can go ahead and say it's the sum of all sides and add 48 and 9 and 8 and 48 and 17. Okay, so that's kind of like adding the 9 and the 8 together on this side to get 17. And then this is going to be the 48, the 9, the 8, and then I have a 48 plus 17. I don't know what this is, and I don't really care, because I know this whole thing, this part, let me color it green there for you, this part plus this part is actually 48, so it doesn't really matter. Okay, and then I got the 17 just by looking at this and this, which would be the same as this. All right, make sense? So in that case, we would get a total of 130 inches. So try the next several on your own, and I will reveal the answers. You can go ahead and pause here. So in this case, I'm going to use 3s since it's equilateral, and I would get a side of 2 1/3. 3 times 2 1/3 is the same as 3 times 7/3 or 7 meters. A regular octagon, so I'm going to take 8 times 7 3/4, giving me 62. You can check the math there. They want you to find the x here. So I'm going to say I know that the sum of all sides is the perimeter. I know that 11.4 plus 16.1 plus x is 33.5. So then I can just solve for x. And similar to the case here, except you got to remember you have 4 sides and the width is in there twice. Okay, so be sure to do all of that work, getting 1 for the length of the width for the width's measure. Now we're going to talk about area. Okay, area is the size a surface takes up. So it's inside the figure. So the size a surface takes up. And it's always expressed in square units. I think you guys know that. But it's important to remember it and not to put in square units where you don't need them. Okay, the other key thing is in all of these formulas, well, in many of these formulas, you're going to see an H, a height. Height is like when you go to the doctors and they don't let you slouch against the wall. Okay, here's the wall. They say, no, you have to put your feet up against the wall and stand straight up tall to measure your height. Okay, you can't slouch. So it's the same thing with a figure. In other words, this could never be my height. Okay, this could never be my height of my trapezoid. So you should know all these formulas. Some of them they're familiar to you and some are not. Anytime you have a rectangle, it is area equals base times height, which happens to be length times width in a rectangle. It's side squared usually. Now remember that a square is a rectangle, so you could use either of these, but side squared is easier. In a parallelogram, it's base times height. So this is what I'm talking about. You have to know this height to figure out the area, and this would be your base. Okay? This, could also be a base. So in this figure, this is my height. Okay? I don't care about this unless I'm doing perimeter. Then this one's important and the other one is not. So in a triangle, the thing to remember is it's 1/2 base times height. And in a trapezoid, this one might be the newest one to you. You kind of have to think of it as a trapezoid has 2 bases. There's the end of the day. 2 bases, okay? And in each of those, the base, this one says, well, I'm a base, I want to count. And this one says, no, I'm the base, I want to count. So it's kind of like we're taking an average of the bases times the height. All right, and that could be expressed either way. This is just algebraic manipulation of a formula. You do need to know these. They are need to know. There's no other way to get around it. Those of you who tried to get around vocabulary when I told you needed to know that, found out that I was actually right. Okay, so we want area and perimeter of each of these. So I'm going to do a couple with you, and then I'll let you do the rest on your own. I'm not going to do the first one because that's the easiest one. So let's go down and do, I'll do the triangle. Okay, so remember perimeter is just sum of all sides. So I'm going to add up the sides, which are 7.6 plus 8.2 plus, be careful, 12.4. And if you add those up, you will get 28.2, and that's going to be meters. Now to do area, area is, I'm going to write my formula first, 1/2 base times height. So area is 1/2, 12.4. In this case, 6.8 is the height. Okay, so that is always the perpendicular. The height is perpendicular to the base. Okay? And if you do the math there, which you should do on your own, it's good review for your midterm. Okay, dealing with decimals, you should get 42.16, and that's going to be meters squared. Good? All right. I think I might actually leave the rest of these for you to do. And if you want to pause here, what I'll do is put the answers up. Okay? I do have a little bit of work here, so you can pause and look at my work. Your work should look similar. I should be able to follow it. I should see a formula. I should see a final answer that's boxed or circled with units, area, square units, perimeter, linear units. So this work I did not do for nothing. I did this work to show you what I expect to see. If your paper does not look like my paper, you will not get full credit. Do I make myself clear? All right, so you can pause here if you need to look at any of those first four, and then I'll page down. The important thing to look at in number 6 is that I did fill in those missing measurements for this length and this length, which helped me later on. Okay? So all the work is there. Any questions you can bring to me tomorrow. Have a fantastic evening.